Hi, welcome to the Chad Bozarth Show. Thanks for listening.
Dude, what's up?
Hey man, good morning.
Hey, I told my mom we were gonna be talking. She's like, "Didn't you already interview him?" I'm like, "Yeah." Like,
There's nothing new that I can share.
how's everything going, man? I think since the last time we officially talked on here, you moved from 3 kids to 4 kids.
I know, yeah, we have a newborn baby at home again. It's going well. But I will say, moving from having 3 kids to 4 kids is a whole lot more work than what we were prepared for.
Okay, give me the details.
So, having one child, thinking back to it, when we first had our oldest daughter, I thought, man, this is so much work. I am on like dad call, like on call as dad at any moment of the day, and I remember there was times where sometimes my wife would go, work in another room and it'd just be me and my daughter. And I remember thinking, wow, this is a lot. Like I got to make sure she's not eating stuff off the floor and, like she's okay and alive and breathing. And then we added my second daughter, and then it was like, okay, now by that point, us parents, we were getting better at being parents, right? So it was like, okay, one on one. Like I got one daughter, while my wife has another daughter, has the other daughter, and then the third kid, our son. Then it was like, oh, now we have to play like zone. It goes from man to man, man to man defense to zone, and luckily the girls were getting a little bit older, and so they were a little bit more self sufficient and kind of could handle themselves. But man, going from 3 to 4, oh man, it is a lot. It is chaos in our house. I feel like most of the time. And
Were you able to use the same vehicle that you already had?
yeah, luckily we already had a van. We had a Honda Odyssey, and we're very happy still with that car, and plenty of room to load up everybody and move everybody around. But now the issue is, like, I drive just a Kia SUV, and it's not really large enough to have the whole family in there, and it's
Hmm.
really not. I mean, it's tight with me and the 4 kids with car seats and all of that, and so we're now thinking, man, do we get a second minivan? Like, can we be a two minivan family? But
Uh,
yeah, it's busy, man. It's busy. I think the hardest part too is like, I think especially for millennial parents, like we want to be so engaged with our children and active, with our kids, and make sure that we're giving them plenty of like one-on-one time, and make sure that they have a chance to flourish and to bloom and try out new hobbies and go to sports and do all the things, and so we're still trying to do that with all 4 kids, but whew, there is no
uh,
downtime.
did you ever think that you would have 4 kids?
I was open to it, really. I mean, back when I was in like elementary school, I remember thinking, wow, being a parent would be fun. I thought it would be really an enjoyable thing, and it is. It's fun. I enjoy it.
Yeah, I do too. I,
Um,
I think about sometimes like back when I was single and not married and like I I wasted so much time.
yeah.
Like, what did I even do?
Dude, I remember back when we lived together, our apartment, and I got really big into watching. Do you remember the show Lost?
Yeah, I never really watched it, but I remember you were big into it.
Oh man, this is back when Blockbuster was still a thing.
I know we had one right down the street from us.
Yeah,
I love
yeah. And
that, man.
so I remember, dude, there would be days where I was just inside in the living room going to Blockbuster, renting the DVDs of Lost, and then bringing that back to the apartment and spending all day,
Oh
watching
wow.
the episodes. And yeah, so much time was lost,
You know
wasted.
what? That was that was good times. You remember that lady who would out in the parking lot, she would do Tai Chi and just
Oh
stand out there. You remember that?
yeah, I do remember that. Yeah.
I loved that apartment. That was a good apartment.
I was thinking about it the other day. Like, I think we lived in that apartment for what, six six years,
I think 5 years.
5 or 6 years, yeah. And I don't think we really ever cleaned it.
You
Did
know, I
we?
think well, I think the
Do we have
shower.
cleaning supplies
No,
at all?
we should have called the landlord because I think I did Kaboom one time on that shower.
Oh yeah.
I think it didn't have. I don't know anything about building stuff, but I think it didn't have a particular glaze that shower tiles are supposed to have, and so yeah, I
And
was
remember there was carpet in that apartment too, and that
yeah.
we wore our shoes inside. Like it just, I don't think we had a vacuum cleaner at all, did we? I don't
Yeah,
remember.
no, we did have a vacuum cleaner, but I had a weight set in my bedroom for some reason, which of course I never used, but I did use it to hang clothes on.
Oh yeah. Oh, I remember that weight set. Yeah.
And then my parents had that big box, like 35-inch television, remember? And
Uh-huh.
I'm pretty sure we broke it in the
Moving it.
moving it.
Moving
So
it
then
to
we
the
used it as a piece of furniture. We put a blanket over it and put our other TV on top of that TV.
yeah.
Oh, how did we find that apartment? Or you found it, right? I don't
Uh,
even remember the logistics of how that even happened.
well, if okay, so when we moved into that apartment, that was about the time when I was waiting tables at the Cheesecake Factory.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
I was waiting tables at the Cheesecake Factory, and the Cheesecake Factory was pretty close to that apartment. And so I don't remember how we agreed on us being roommates. I don't remember that, but and that was a good little apartment complex. Remember, there was like a lot of young people, and
Oh, it was a great.
uh,
So yeah, it was a great apartment complex. Um,
they had the little
yeah.
country club with the workout center, and
Yeah.
there's people outside playing, like other young people like us playing sports on the weekends. And I think there was like a flag football tournament or something out there one time. And
I wonder how it is. I haven't been over there in a long time. That seems like
yeah,
but I loved it because we were so close to the big half price bookstore.
oh yeah, uh-huh, yeah,
So that was right there. And yeah, Blockbuster right down the street. And then I would always go, there was a Pluckers right close to
oh
us.
yeah,
So I remember, man,
going
I'm
up,
ready for bed at like 9 o'clock now, but I remember going to Pluckers and getting wings at like 10 or 11 at night.
uh-huh, yeah, yeah.
Oh, that's like a different time, man. That's
Okay, let's see. So that was like 2008, I think, is when we moved into that apartment. Does that sound about right? 2008 or
or
2009
2007. 2007.
or 2007? So, dude, that was almost
Yeah, no,
what?
mate,
That was
might be
almost
eight.
20 years ago. 18 years ago
Oh,
that we moved into that apartment. Oh
20
my
years ago. Oh, yeah. Uh, that's the thing. So, yeah, that's the
God.
thing.
Do
So
you find?
I was substitute teaching my mom's class at Christ for the Nations this morning. And, I realized that a lot of those kids in there were born after I went there.
Wow. Yep.
Yeah, that's a thing. Um,
That's wild.
so let me ask you, so sometimes I joke around with Angela, I say, thinking about having a fourth kid, and I say I can't imagine being more exhausted than I already am. But
Mhm.
apparently you're more exhausted than you were.
It is possible to become more tired. Yes.
So are there any strategies you would share for people who might be transitioning from three to four? Like, is
Oh my
there
God.
anything
Well,
like, or you're just kind of winging it?
uh, I think a lot of the discussion in our house has been about, like, here lately, has been about like mental capacity. Like,
Mm.
what do you have room for mentally to be
Ooh.
able to, what load can you share? Like, can you share with your spouse, or maybe not share with your spouse? And like, my wife is in charge of those things, and I'm in charge of
Mm.
these things, because like neither one of us have any extra room to hold on to any, have any new responsibilities, right? And so with that, like your mental capacity, like what your mental load is, but then also like reevaluating every part of our day of like, hey, how am I spending my time during this part of the day? Do I need to cut something out? You know, like for example, just for me here, since I mean, like since like the holidays, like December, I cut out social media because I
Mm,
found that I was just and I think we all kind of go through cycles of being on social media and then maybe being off or whatever. It seems like we're doing that a lot. But I just was like, I just need more mental space, and I just can't handle being on Facebook or Instagram, on Reels or whatever, because I just have other things I need to be doing or other
mm.
other ways of relaxing. And so, I mean, if you and Angela are thinking about having a fourth, like do it, man. Like I'm not discouraging anybody. I think anything is possible. Everything is doable. It's just constantly reevaluating our priorities in life. Like, what do we want out of this thing?
You talk about mental capacity, like no offense to Cheesecake Factory, but like it sounds dumb, but I'm being honest. Like I can't even go to a place like Cheesecake Factory right now at this point in my life because the menu, the sheer amount of choices on the menu would stress me out so much.
Yeah,
I can't do that.
yeah.
Like I can't.
That
I
it's
yeah.
funny that you even say that because Katie and I, our joke is that when we were dating, once upon a time, a long time ago, that whenever we'd go to a restaurant, maybe a restaurant we've been to before, or a new one, um, I always would get something new that I've never had
Oh,
before. And that was like a little, she knew that it was a quirk about me that I would never order the same thing again, whether it was a restaurant that we'd been to or whatever. And so that was kind of,
I didn't know that about you. I
yeah,
kind of feel bad.
it was actually kind of like some kind of weird like tick that I had that I was like, ooh, I just can't eat something that I've already eaten here before, kind of thing. And
Mm.
so Katie is the exact opposite. She will order the exact same thing at any restaurant that we go to, right? So about mental capacity, now I'm at a stage in life where I ordered the exact same thing because
Welcome.
there is not enough room in my brain for me to just process, okay, what do I want to eat? No, no, no. I don't even care if I'm hungry or not. Like if we're ordering food, okay, I'm just going to order the same thing. It's fun.
Yeah. Well, it's fun. I'm amazed and distressed and interested in myself that I'm becoming so much more of a homebody than I used to be.
Mhm.
Like my Uncle Dean keeps saying, load up the kids and come out to Florida. I'm like, man, I don't even feel like loading up the kids and driving down to Target. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
no, but I love it. We have so much fun. But I think about back in the day when we spent time in Europe and we're traveling around, like back in that moment 20 years ago, the whole like figuring out subways and like figuring out foreign stuff, I enjoyed that. Now it's like I like to be in a foreign place, but I don't want to figure out a bunch of stuff. I'd rather somebody just pick me up.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's weird how that's changed. Like I didn't make a decision. It's just like I guess I'm just getting older.
It's like yeah, no, I get that. Like it's there's the routine of life,
Yeah.
that when we have like I drive the exact same way to work every day. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I brush my teeth about the exact same time every day, things like that. That there's like a lot of like safety and like comfort in it that I don't have to think about anything else. I'm gonna get in my car and I'm gonna get in my car, turn on the same street, listen to the same radio program or whatever, my same podcast I listen to every morning as
The
I go to
Chad
work.
Bozarth show.
Oh yeah, dude, Mondays.
Hey,
That is that's the hot download day is Monday.
can I be honest with you about brushing teeth? Sometimes in the morning I don't use toothpaste because I don't want to mess up the taste of my coffee.
Oh. Mhm. My way around that is I drink coffee first and then I brush my teeth.
Oh,
Yeah,
mm,
that is
see,
one alternative. So that's a
even
little,
just with my three kids, I don't have time for that.
oh,
I
uh-huh.
once I leave the bathroom floor, I Okay.
No, I roll out of bed and I walk straight to the kitchen to make my first cup of coffee.
Really?
Yeah, 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 yeah,
I
yeah.
remember when we lived together, you didn't really like me talking to you for the first few hours of the day.
Uh, I do like my silence in the morning. I do. Yeah, I need a moment to just kind of wake up.
So let me tell you this. I turned 42 last week, which is hard to even really wrap my brain around.
I
Do you
wish
ever
you
feel,
happy birthday.
oh,
Again.
thank you, man.
I feel like I need to say that.
Thanks.
I mean, I already said it on your birthday, but I'm just reminding you that I said it.
But I've been thinking, do you ever feel this like when I first went through school, if I'm being honest with you, like I was a decent student, but so much of me was just trying to like get a good grade, but I wasn't really like enjoying it or thinking it through. And so now I shouldn't live in the past or regrets, but just being honest with you, like I think about where I'm at now and my love for reading, and it's like I feel so behind. I feel like there's all of these great books that I should have read in high school or in my 20s or 30s, and for whatever reason I didn't. And now I'm just like, oh, I'm missing out. So anyway, all that to say, like I know you're a history teacher and like even it being the 250th anniversary of our country, and I just feel like there's so many gaps in my knowledge. And so how you've been you teach your is your main focus US history or Texas history?
Yeah. So, yeah, U.S. history. Yeah, I'm in year 14 of being a history teacher.
Okay. Oh, so let me start off with that. So you've been, wow. So you've been teaching 14 years. I'll get back to my other question in a little bit. You've been teaching 14 years. What have been like the major changes that you've seen? Because 14 years, dude, congratulations, man.
I
That's
know.
awesome.
It sounds like a long time, right?
Hey, that's significant.
Yeah. Yeah, 14 years. And yeah, I've taught, you know, from eighth graders through really through college students. So right now I'm teaching for Dallas ISD. I teach dual enrollment students, high school students that are taking college classes, and so I'm teaching
Mm,
college level history courses. I had teach two, and all U.S. history. So I do like the first half of U.S. and I do the second half of U.S. history. But the majority of my students are high school students. Yeah.
mm. How have
Um,
you seen things change? Like, there's been a lot of changes in the last 14 years. What's
yeah.
been your experience?
It's wild because when I first started teaching, so this was like 2012 when I first started. You know, uh, cell phones were, there were some students that had cell phones, but I wouldn't say all of them.
Mm,
When I was teaching, that my very first year of teaching, I was taught ninth grade, so like
mm,
14-year-olds, and maybe like half the class had a cell phone that first year, and
mm,
so there was a lot of classroom management. It was a focus on classroom management of like, man, how do I have these 25, 14-year-olds, how do I get them all like sit, in their chair, sitting down and like ready to learn something that they probably don't care about,
mm,
you know? And then like, how do I give them like a lesson that they can comprehend, that they can get? And then how do I like check to see if they actually got it or not? And so that
mm,
first year, it was overwhelming being that first year teacher. I mean, I was Monday through Friday, obviously at the school all day, and in my classroom, doing all those things. But then on Sundays was my big planning day where I would I'd uh, spend most of the day on Sunday planning out like what was where my lessons could be for the week and how do I manage these kids, so, but then the years after that, cell phones became, maybe it's just because, kids were getting a little bit older and I moved up to teaching sophomores and then I moved up again teaching 11th grade juniors. And cell phones became more of an issue, and where everyone had a cell phone and there's just so many distracting things on cell phones and them being able to communicate with one another and social media and all of that. And so I went from like, okay, how do I take these kids who are wild and have them sit, seating, in their chairs, sitting in their chairs. I go from that to like, okay, they are just silent. Nobody's talking because they're
Mm,
always staring at their phones,
mm,
you know. And then it's like trying to engage them in a totally different way of like, okay, well, hey, like you need to put away your phone so that way you can focus on me and my lesson for right now. And that's tough. That's like telling like a cocaine addict to put away their cocaine, for a 45-minute lesson with some random guy. And so that was tricky of like trying to make my lessons more engaging and more like focused on something that they might be interested in. Um and then now it's changing again. And so it's just it's weird. Teaching is different every single year because you have a different group of students, and there's different trends. There's just different things that are impacting them in a different way.
what about like pre and post COVID? Because I feel like my kids, they're at a certain age. I don't think they even know what happened really.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
even my oldest, so like they missed, I think, a lot of the negative effects of it, thankfully.
yeah.
But obviously, older kids were right in I feel bad for kids who like that was their graduation year. So, like
Oh, yeah, yeah. Uh-huh.
what are you seeing as far as like before and after type?
Yeah. So, and maybe some listeners have heard this before, but we call them COVID babies, COVID kids,
Hmm.
that have a learning lapse. And I don't have the data in front of me or whatever, but like there's a
Yeah.
nationwide trend where like reading comprehension levels are down, math skills are down, you know, um, and I'm seeing it more. I'm noticing it more this year because so I'm teaching 11th grade right now. So these kids were like in like fifth and sixth grade during COVID. And these kids are in the classroom, they are more passive than previous years.
Hmm.
And they are so much faster to try to cheat on an assignment.
Really?
Oh yeah. Yeah. And I'm talking like cheating on like, oh, okay, maybe a simple little assignment that I give for them to do, like a homework assignment that they do outside of class, or even like cheating on like a major exam. Here in Texas, we have the big state exams every year, the STAR exams. And last week, my students were taking their STAR exam, and there was so just across the high school, there were so many students that were caught cheating.
Wow.
Yeah, like more so than I can remember in previous years. Cheating because like maybe we saw a couple students, we caught a couple that actually had pieces of paper, which that's like the old style of cheating, with
Well, I
answers.
remember back when we were in high school, a person who shall remain nameless uh, cheated quite a bit from my perspective. And but even the cheating that this person did, I feel like they still probably took in a lot of the information because it was so arduous to actually
Yeah.
execute the cheating, which is different than what you're saying.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. It's so funny to me, like a student that has created a cheat sheet to use on a paper. I'm like, dude, that means that you sat last night with a pen and a paper in front of you, and you wrote out the answers to.
Oh my
That's called
goodness.
studying. That's what that's
Yeah.
called. You were studying, and that's great.
Oh my goodness.
No, but now, and I don't remember the name of it, but there is a Google program, a Google tool where you open it and it's the camera lens, and all you have to do is point it at your screen, and Google will give you the answer. You don't have to click anything.
Wow.
You're not taking a picture of it. You just hold it up, and it's kind of like scanning a QR code or something like that kind of idea, and it just give you the answer right away. And so, what we found this year for the state exams is that students would sneak their phones in, and then they'd be wearing like a hoodie, and so their phone would just be like inside their hoodie pocket. And then, the proctor would be walking around the room, and as soon as the proctor turns their back, they just real quick hold up their phone to the screen, and it gives them the answer in like, half a second. And then they just hide their phone back in their hoodie. And that's something that I don't remember happening last year or previous years. And so it's really interesting how cheating has become, it's just so much easier because of all the technology that is available to us.
I think I saw something on X the other day. I mean, I didn't confirm it, so I don't know if it's true or not, but that like 150 years ago or something, to even get into Harvard, you had to know Greek and Latin, like to even just get in.
Yeah.
And I think that's interesting. Like, obviously, that's not the case now.
Yeah.
What happened? Like, I guess that's like a big question, but
Well, and I'll say, like, because of all of these tools to make our lives easier, all this technology that's available to us, which is great, it's wonderful, you know, but it's changing like education
yeah.
completely. It's totally changing how the current structure that we have, for at least here in North Texas, and I think in across Texas and probably across the country, is the whole style of like the sit and get kind of thing. Like
Hmm.
students come in, they sit in rows of desks, and then there's an expert in the room. We call that expert the teacher. We show them respect by calling them Mr. or Mrs. Smith, kind of thing. And then Mr. Smith lectures, and students are on the edge of their seats, listening and taking notes. And then they're taking that information and they're like storing it in their little computer brains, right? That's kind of the idea. That is coming from post World War II life.
Mm,
That's the 1950s style. That is of the American education system,
mm,
and uh, and that style of teaching is in preparation for getting students ready for the workforce, right?
mm.
Of working in
Like repetitive tasks.
repetitive
Yeah.
tasks and industry, and you have a boss who tells you to do something, and you do it without without question, kind of idea. But what's happening now is that I think work has completely changed. How people work has completely changed, and how people get new information and understand new information, learn new information is different. But we're still using these old styles of teaching
Mm,
in the classrooms, which are not working, as well. And so there's this shift that's happening in education. I feel like I'm rambling a little bit, but
no, it's good. Well,
the shift that's happening.
yeah. Well, I even wonder, like, in 10 years, what percentage of colleges that exist now will even exist?
Mm,
Because, like take an attorney and AI and everything. It's like you're always going to have attorneys, I guess, at some level, but like the grunt working attorney
yeah,
who's like pushing papers around all day, like how many of those are going to exist in 15 years or whatever the time? Who knows the time frame? But at some point, 100 years, whatever.
yeah.
And so like the different tiers of colleges that are, I don't know. I just I don't I it's hard to really
Well,
know how it's going to be.
I think I texted, this is something that I think you'll think is real interesting. I think I texted this to you, but so like my current position, I teach face-to-face classes, but then I also teach online, like online only classes, which is a totally different beast of
Yeah.
it, of a
Yeah.
class, because I don't ever actually meet those students, in,
Mm.
and so everything is done through our online platform. So I try to make those classes engaging. I try to make it kind of interesting for students to kind of, learn some history, but then also like process history and, reflect on it and whatever. And so what I do is I'll have them, uh, I'll have a discussion board question, and then they have to like choose a side, like have an opinion,
Mm.
choose a side, and then try to defend that for everyone in the class to be able to read or to hear. Sometimes I make them record videos of them talking. Sometimes I make them write it out. One of my discussion board questions from last semester was we were talking about the voting age, right? That to be able to vote here in America, you have to be 18. And the question I said is, should we lower the voting age or maybe raise the voting age or just keep it the same? I said, choose a side and defend it. Well, on these types of questions, I'm seeing a trend that more and more students are using AI to get their answer. And so as I'm
And it's an
grading,
opinion question.
it's an opinion question. Yeah, that's the thing. It's an opinion question.
It's
And so
wild.
as I'm grading, you'll think this is so funny. As I'm grading these assignments, student after student after student is essentially saying the exact same thing, giving the exact same reasoning. And their answer was to lower the voting age to age, 16. And which I think is so wild, because I think if that student who wrote that answer was actually in the room with me and I said, you want to lower the voting? Have you never been around a 16-year-old? Have you never seen a 16-year-old and never talked to them? You really want them to be voting? And hey, I can see an argument for it. Sure. But I just think that's absolutely wild. And that out of my class, I think I had 25 students in the class. I think 20 of them chose that they wanted to lower it to age 16. Now, you might think, oh, well, they probably were just reading each other's answers and then just like regurgitating it. No, I don't allow them to see each other's answers until they've already submitted an answer. So this was like just straight blank canvas. This is what they get. So I was like, man, this is wild. That's what I was thinking to myself. I was like, how did they all come to this answer that's kind of extreme? Well, I went and plugged my question into ChatGPT, and ChatGPT says lower to age 16.
Oh my goodness.
Which, okay. So, and it gave me a great answer. I mean, like a really solid answer that if I was in the class, I could have just copy and pasted it into the results, or into the assignment. But the crazy part about this is that, that's what they put as their answer. But if I actually were to talk to them, I don't think anybody would choose to lower it to age 16. I think if anything, maybe people might say we should, raise it or keep it the same, keep it at 18 or maybe raise it to 21 or 20 or something like that. And so that's just a small little insight into, I think, where we're headed. We are all leaning more heavily on AI to provide us answers, to write our emails and to come up with, what project ideas, whatever, that we might just, AI is going to be forming our opinions about society, and be making the decisions for us on how we should view things. Might not critically be thinking about the answer. It's wild, right?
That's why, I mean, I would think somebody would want to pass their opinion. I can't wait. Somebody asks me my opinion. I love sharing my opinion.
Okay. Yeah. No. And that's okay. So yeah, I'm the same as you, man. Like I think millennials tend to, man, we love sharing our thoughts. That's why social media has worked so well for us, right? Like, well, oh my God, like I am going to share my opinion about whatever's going on, or I'm gonna put a picture of me out there and show everyone how, handsome or beautiful or whatever I am, right? But that's not how it is for Gen Z. Gen Z, they have grown up in this like cancel culture where everything has to be perfect. There is no room for mistakes, right?
That's so sad.
So when it comes to them sharing their opinion, they are very sensitive about what they're putting out there on the internet, whether it's written or a video or a picture of themselves or whatever. They're very hesitant to do that. And instead, because if they do, that means it's documented, and that means that will be on their profile, their resume for the rest of their life, right? that, yeah, maybe they're 16 right now, but someday they'll be 65, and someone will bring it up of, oh, you misspelled this word, or you had this crazy opinion, and now you're canceled. You
Mm-hmm.
know, and so Gen Z, kids under the age of 20, no, they would prefer to have no opinion and steal someone else's perfect opinion.
Mm.
Yeah, AI write it for them.
Mm.
And so it's very, it's interesting that we're going through this right now.
That's wild.
Yeah.
That reminds me of a Star Trek The Next Generation episode where there's these humans on this planet and they have a computer that basically for however long has met all of their needs. So like they don't know how to do anything because like every answer, every whatever they need to exist, it's all done for them by this machine. And so they literally they don't know how to do anything.
Hmm. And like I'm like, when it comes to AI, I'm using it more and more in my life,
Oh
truthfully.
yeah, me too. I use it all the time.
Yeah, I mean, I know people. I've talked to people this week, other adults, in our age bracket, that are like terrified of AI and are trying to avoid it at all costs. But I think it's already here,
Oh yeah.
and it's like the internet, like when the internet first came out 30 years ago.
Yeah.
It was maybe a little bit scary or whatever, but you just have it's here, and now we got to use it. And
Mm.
it's a cool tool,
Yeah. Let me pivot and go back to my first question
Oh yeah.
because I know we have to wrap up at some point. Back to education. I just feel like there's so many gaps and I just feel like hungry to fill those gaps with information. Like what would you recommend as far as um I don't know, if I wanted to refresh my brain and get a good overview of American history, how would you recommend I go about doing that? Is there a particular book or a podcast or how can I it's like I'm always kind of an argumentative type of person, but I'm realizing that just basic facts, it's hard to argue when you don't have the facts. You know
Mm,
what I mean? And so
yeah.
like some of the I have a framework in my mind, but if American history was like a coloring page, like I'm really darkly colored on some spots and other parts maybe are blank. I'm trying to
Mhm.
color in the picture. Anyway, blah blah, I'm rambling. What would be a good
I
how can I fill in gaps that I probably should have already had filled in high school, but for whatever reason I wasn't paying attention.
I mean, I know I work in this, and I work this job, but the answer I have is not an easy one to digest. It's not an easy. It is
I would
not
like
like
an
a.
easy answer, please.
It,
Thank you.
it is not an easy answer. No, and let me explain like why the study of like history is so difficult, and we see it even more right now with our, current administration and all the things that are happening. And I'm not making this political, but the study of history is tough. I like to compare it to putting together a jigsaw puzzle, right?
Mm,
Um, we're putting together, we're trying to piece together a story that happened, you know, a long time ago in the past, and the pieces that we're using to put the story together is only giving us a partial glimpse at it, right?
mm, mm,
And so yes, you can like check out a history textbook, at the library, or you can go find an old one at half price books, and that's gonna give you, the big pieces that have been provided. It's gonna give you an idea as to what the story is, like a big overarching story. But what we're seeing now, I would say, I mean, really just during this time of the internet age, is that more and more puzzle pieces are becoming available, and it's
mm,
creating a much more
mm,
robust and deeper story that it's hard to create this overarching storyline because there's just so many details, and it's constantly changing, right?
mm,
I'll give you some examples, like like the JFK assassination. right? Like
Mm,
JFK assassination, um, you know, obviously president was killed here in Dallas back in 1963. That's a big moment. There's so many questions about, what was going on behind the scenes, and year after year, this was like, my dad was, going into high school. Let's see. All right, I think he was in middle school during that time, but like during his high school years, his high school history teacher talked about it and just the
mm,
mystery of like what's going on. We just know that the president was killed, and was there something more? And then the 1970s and 80s, and it's just there's been so many questions about it. And so if you were to look at a textbook during that time, the JFK assassination would be a smaller section, right? But
mm,
now here we're living in a world where the government has released all these files to us. It's essentially like the government just walks in with trash bags full of
mm,
puzzle pieces, dumping them out in the middle of the room.
mm,
Okay, this is what we got for JFK. So you guys just figure it out, and then like trying to put all the pieces together, and so for people, just normal people like me and you that are like, okay, what was the JFK assassination? Like, yeah, it's the same facts from 1963, right? But
mm,
if you really want to know the full depth of it, you need to dive into the archives. The
mm,
millions, I think it's millions of pieces of, photographs and pictures and interviews and different transcripts and all the other stuff that they have to try to get the full story. And that story is ongoing.
mm,
So what I'm saying is that history is not as easy as, 2 plus 2 equals 4. Like math class, 2 plus 2 equals 4. That is the answer. That's never changing. But history is way more gray, right? Of like,
mm,
we think we know what happened during this time because the pieces that we have are telling us this, but there could be future pieces that are released to us that are going to completely change how we view that moment, right?
mm. Let me
And
throw let me throw this quote at you.
yeah,
I really that answer is very interesting and it's frustrating. So
it is frustrating. Yeah.
so
Wait.
this is let me throw this at you. All human communities live out of some story that gives unity, meaning, and direction to their lives. It's from a drama of scripture book. But I was thinking about that quote as you were talking, and it's like, that's probably why there is so much conflict, even politically, is because there's really no agreement as to what is the story we're all living by,
Right. Yeah.
right? And so, because the people who experienced the JFK, it's like, I don't know. I was making fun of my uncle the other day because I was talking about Jim Jones and that whole cult thing, and he's like, "Yeah, I lived it." I'm like, I don't think watching it on the news counts as living it, but I understand his point. Like I was making fun
Yeah.
of him, but it's kind of like like you said, the people who experienced that, like our dad's generation, our parents' generation, their perspective is so locked in, and it's not that it's wrong per se because it really happened and they observed what they observed, but then now that all these other files are coming in, they didn't have the full picture.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like conspiracy theories aside, it's hard not to be a conspiracy theorist in the sense that what are we being told that there's going to be a document dump 20 years from now that upends the
Yeah.
narrative of what we're learning in history now? And it's kind of it's a little depressing. Like, yeah, politics
Yeah. It,
aside, it's just like how can you
it's
ah,
really it's a frustrating study of looking at history. I'll give you another example, one more recently. Think, okay, we lived through COVID, right?
right.
That was a wild time, and again, politics aside, like life was put on halt for many of us, right?
Yeah,
For me personally, I don't believe I ever got COVID, right? Not that I'm aware of, or at least
me
not during
neither.
not during 2020, 2021. I think I did have it like in 2024 or whatever. But anyways, during the height of it, um, I didn't have anyone in my family real close to me that had serious symptoms from it. Like my dad got COVID and he was he was out for about 10 days or so. Um, hey man, I just had a knock on the door.
Okay, I'll
Do
pause it.
we, do you want to pause? Are you cool
Or
with hanging out for a minute?
yeah.
Or yeah, okay.
Okay, yeah, sounds good.
Yeah, hold on one second.
Uh, okay, we had to take a little break, and then I am in my mom's closet, and I don't know if she needs to get in here or what. But anyways, okay, you were talking about COVID.
Okay, yeah, I was in a groove there, and I lost.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
uh, no, it's talking about COVID. So
Oh,
thinking,
yeah. Okay, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
history as like we would interpret COVID, right? So like for me, it wasn't a huge impact, although I see globally it was impacting the world, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so if let's just say 100 years from now, there's some historian that wants to write a book on COVID. And if they
Mm,
were to get like my perspective on it, I might say, okay, yeah, it was definitely happening. There was people getting sick, but like it wasn't that bad kind of idea, even though economically, globally, it was tough.
right.
But then, if that same historian were to interview someone who maybe like lost their mom, to
Mm,
their perspective is like this is the worst thing in the world, like, right?
yeah,
And so for a historian, that's really tricky because you have these two different accounts about the same event that are exact opposites, right?
yeah. That's
And
true.
and so how do you write a history story about that, right? Like how do you write that? How do you add that into a textbook to that student 100 years from now? What do they need to know about COVID? That it impacted everyone? That it did impact everyone, but like some people got sick, some people didn't, like, and so there's a depth to studying history that is really, really difficult and
Mm,
frustrating. And so what I do for my students is I tell them, hey, this is the story that I know for today. Like today is whatever,
yeah.
April 2026. This is what I know about it. And guess what? Next year, there might be new information that comes out that I have to change how I tell the story.
Mm.
This is the best that I got for you guys today. And just know that history is how we interpret it changes over time, right?
Man, that's so good too, because even it's dangerous. Like if you quote somebody, well, somebody might have written something when they were 20 that changed when they were 60. And so if you just randomly quote somebody to justify whatever you're trying to say, it's like, well, you're kind of being dishonest by just, even though it's technically a true quote, you're not telling the full story because you're not properly characterizing the transformation that maybe took place. Or it's like I had a professor talk about, if you're doing like Bible backgrounds or whatever, and you're studying Ephesus, like it's dangerous to say the Ephesians believed dot 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 because it's like saying Texans are Cowboys or something. Like, yeah, there's generalities, but to
Yeah,
your point, there's a lot of differentiation between individuals, and it's hard to make these sweeping things. Well, Americans believe this. It's like, well, which ones? Like, there's a big
right.
difference between Terrell, Texas, and Tucson, Arizona, I suppose.
And it's tough too because like we're looking at these stories of time through the lenses that we have on today, right? Like we live in a world today where women can vote.
Right.
you know Women can have jobs and have credit cards. And I know that sounds really like sexist, but the truth is that 100 years ago or 100 110 years ago, uh that was not a common thing, right?
Hmm.
I mean, women couldn't get credit cards until like the 1970s, like under their own name. They had to have a man get it for them.
Oh, interesting.
Which is not, I mean, that was what, 50 years ago, and
Hmm.
so it's tough for us to take our glasses that we have, the 2026 glasses, and then look at 1890 through
Mm,
those lenses. And
that's
so
true.
it's like you're taking off the glasses that you have on and putting on glasses from that year to better understand what's happening during that time.
Mm,
Then eventually we have to come back to our day today, and we're like, okay, well, how should we view this?
mm,
And then the definition of history changes, or how we define that time or that story, right?
mm. That's good.
Anyways, it's tricky. It's a
That
tricky.
is.
Yeah.
Okay, well, with that in mind, As we wrap up,
How long
that's
are we
so
going
good.
here, man? This is
Huh?
we're how long are we at here?
It's pretty a good while. Well, so let me ask you this as we wrap up then. Given everything that you've said, still, are there any books or podcasts you would recommend? Um, but keeping in mind, I really liked what you said. It's really true. I need to, yeah, it's like even the best historian is really you never fill in all the gaps because the gaps there's always new gaps. So
There's always new gaps.
and new
Other things.
perspectives and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
Is there anything that you like to listen to or would recommend?
So the book that has impacted me the most over the last year, and I think I texted it to you before, but the book that has been most impactful to me was a book by um, S.C. Gwynn, which he's written a bunch of different books, but Empire of the Summer Moon,
Oh, that
and
was a
it's
good book.
the story. I think you read it too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, the story about the Comanches and just how fierce and brutal they were, and
And
violent.
Quanah Parker, I
Yeah,
think. And
yeah,
oh yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, that was a good book.
He was the last great chief of the Comanches, and how even the great empires of the time, Spain and France and England were terrified of the Comanches, and
Yeah.
did not want to go onto the great. What I love though about, I mean, obviously, like the information was really cool,
Yeah.
but he is just the author is just such a good storyteller. It just
Yeah.
really brings you in and and it reveals the information to you, but not all at once. I mean, that's what we see a lot of
Yeah.
times in history is it's just being so dry. It's like, man, it's a cool story, but man, you're telling it terribly, But he's a good storyteller, and so I really enjoyed that book. But kind of what I was just saying though, like there's been critics of him that
Mm.
he wrote this, I think it's a New York Times bestselling, nonfiction book, and yet the critics are saying, well, hey, you didn't expose enough of the Comanche side. You didn't share the story of the Comanche side of it
Mm.
enough. Or maybe he interpreted some of the documents wrong, or it was a very well researched book, but there's going to be critics to that,
Yeah.
and I think that's just part of the study of history, that you're always going to have that.
Mm.
Um, so that's a book that I totally recommend if you like reading history at all. I think it's a great book. Um, but just like to an overarching, study of history, knowing more. I mean, I think I don't have a really good one, other than just like if you wanted to go get an old history textbook, you could, but I don't know if that's the
Mm.
best avenue. You can come take my class.
Mm. Yes. That would be great. I would love that.
That would be an interesting experience. I'd
Hey,
make, I'd make you call me Professor Bilton.
I would. I'd be glad to. Professor Bilton, thank you so much
Yeah, man.
for being my friend.
Yeah,
So
totally.
I
Glad,
always
glad
have
to
in the
be
back of my
here.
mind, I'm not sure if my mom secretly has my friends on payroll like to still be my friend, but you've been with me for a while, so
The checks keep coming, man.
you
So,
know what? Real quick, I actually mentioned you not by name in my class this morning because I was talking about, anyway, it doesn't matter, but I was talking about how when I'm sick, I like to tell everybody that I'm sick and I want everybody to feel bad for me and everything. I said, but I have a friend who, when he gets sick, he just locks himself in the
oh
back
yeah,
room and just comes out when he's feeling better. And that was you. So I was
yeah.
talking
I
about
like
you
to be
this morning.
left alone. Yep, I like to be left. That's so funny. Yeah.
Carl, thanks so much, man.
Man, thanks for having me. I appreciate being here.
Yeah, bye.
All right, see ya.